Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I actually wanted to discuss something that the developers talked about in a recent Q&A done for the Chinese Dead by Daylight community. Here's the clip.
Could you make 2v8 a permanent game mode? So we're just talking about different game modes coming. That's for sure one in the last couple of years that's been popular. We would love to make it permanent. There's currently not a plan to do that, and it's mainly technical. So there's still a lot of killers that we want to bring to the mode. You know, it's not the full slate right now. So we're still doing it iteratively. So iterations with each one, we're adding killers, we're doing class changes, different changes each time. So we're not done cooking it, I guess I would say. So we would love to make it permanent. So there's that, and then there's also just the general balancing of wait times and queues and all that. So maybe someday in the future, it would be very cool. It's a very fun mode, and we've seen great response to it. So good question.
So should 2v8 become permanent? It's a really popular mode, people love it a lot. Well, no, I do not think it should become permanent, and I have several reasons for why I do not think 2v8 should become permanent. I'm going to go through that a bit here. Firstly, I don't think the game mode is bad. I actually think 2v8 is pretty fun. But unfortunately, it completely impacts the 1v4 side of the game. So if you do not care about 2v8, your experience with 1v4 will be affected by it. I've seen people who've been waiting 10, maybe even 20 minutes to play Killer in 1v4. The issue is people don't want to play 1v4 Survivor. They want to play 2v8 Survivor. You get a lot more blood points, it's quicker, it's more relaxed, it's casual. Whatever the reason, people are playing 2v8 Survivor more than 1v4 Survivor. And you know, if 2v8 was to become permanent, over time people would play the mode less. As there's only so much variety in the mode, there's only so many killers, and there's only so many maps and classes, so it does get quite old and repetitive. Unfortunately, Dead by Daylight just doesn't have the player base to support a split queue at all times. I mean, the only solution to this would be to make the game free to play. But then you have the other issue if the game was to become free to play, that there will be a lot of cheaters. There is already a cheating problem in this game, and Behaviour is trying their best to combat it. But cheaters are still around with the game being paid. And those cheaters that are around are using Epic accounts that got the game for free literally years ago. So I think the only way they could make the queue times potentially work with a permanent split queue is to make the game free to play. There's also just the issue with monetization. Obviously this game needs money to continue running, we're not silly. But 2v8 doesn't really provide that. Yeah, you can do a collection for skins, but that isn't exclusive to 2v8. 2v8 and 1v4 are too similar to make exclusive items for just 2v8. The only thing you could potentially do is make people pay for classes, but I don't think that would go down very well. The only really incentive to spend money in terms of 2v8 is to buy a killer to play them in 2v8. But there's only so many killers available in 2v8, so if you only own some killers, you have a lot more incentive to buy those killers for 1v4, where there's over 40 killers available. In other games such as Hearthstone, it's a card game from Blizzard, they brought out a new mode called Battlegrounds. Well, it's not new anymore, it's quite old. But in Battlegrounds, it was an auto-battler with cards, and it was so popular they made it a part of the core game. It's its own little mode in the game. The difference between that and 2v8 is it's very different. You're able to monetize it. It has its own battle pass, it has its own skins. It's very different from the core game. It's the same with League of Legends and TFT, Teamfight Tactics. It's different enough that you can make money from that and it can sustain the game. And also, both of those games are free to play. The problem with 2v8, if you make it permanent, you can't monetize it because it's too similar to 1v4, and it's going to impact the queue times. Sure, it might not impact the queue times as much after a month or two. It's still going to have some kind of impact because you're splitting the queues in half. Which, for me personally and a lot of other players that prefer to play 1v4 in this time, it completely kills the game for us. Look, I am biased as a content creator. 2v8 is not good for making content. There's only so many things you can make about 2v8. Viewership in general goes down for the game during 2v8 as well. But slow queue times have proven in the past in other video games that it's not good. If people have to wait 5, 10, 20 minutes for a game, they're not going to play it. So the developers cannot make 2v8 permanent because of this. This is the biggest reason. I don't want 2v8 to be gone forever. I Like I said, I think it's a fun part of the game. It makes it more special when it comes back with new features. If anything, I think it comes back a little bit too often. But what they have right now works, and they can keep it fresh by adding new killers and classes and whatnot, instead of it just permanently being a part of the game. I do want to discuss something. I feel like the developers can look at 2v8 and think to themselves, why is 2v8 so popular? Why do people come back just to play 2v8? And I think this just really comes down to where the game is at right now. People have been saying for years that the game is becoming less casual, less of a party game, and more sweaty. It's also very grindy and very hard to learn. When you look at 2v8, you only have so much content there. You only have 10 killers to learn how to counter them. You have, 5 classes of this is what these classes do. There's not over 200 perks to learn. And I hope the developers see that and they think to themselves, okay, maybe we should think about trying to make the game a little bit easier to learn. Don't get me wrong, I have over 8,000 hours in this game. I love the depth of it. There's so many things to learn. There's things you learn years later. For example, something I learned a couple of years later after playing this game is that quick vaulting into a locker or a vault actually has like an audio range. So the killer can't just hear it completely across the map. It actually has a range to it. This is never told to you at all in the game. This is just something that people learn. But the developers really need to think about the future of the game. Obviously, they keep adding 4+ chapters every single year. They could add 1 less chapter a year, make the game more optimized, have there be less perks per year. If there's 1 less chapter, it's 1 less killer and 1 less survivor, so 6 less perks a year. But the game itself is just very perk dependent. If you don't take any perks, you're going to notice a significant disadvantage. Especially if you're playing killer with no gen slowdown. I don't know exactly how you fix that. Do you buff a lot of weak perks? Do you nerf a lot of perks? Do you delete perks? I'm not entirely sure. I do think removing perk tiers, or at least making it so if you get to prestige 1 on a character, you get tier 3 perks on everybody would help a lot. The game's just really not new player friendly, and it gets sweatier and sweatier as time goes on, as players get better and better. It may be an issue with the rank system. I've seen people suggesting making a casual queue and a rank queue. This is kind of the problem I was speaking about earlier. I don't think this game can support 2 different queues on at all times because they don't have the player base to support it. Let's say, hypothetically, they add a ranked queue for Dead by Daylight and it's actually very accurate. If you get high rank in that mode, your queue times are going to be absolutely awful as well. So then you'll probably just play quick queues more. Let's say ranked queue is more balanced and you can only take so many powerful perks or so many items or add-ons or whatnot, like it's balanced in the way that you're limited. People probably won't play that mode, they'll just play casual mode so they can take the strongest items and perks and not have to play a more balanced version of the game. I think the developers need to make the game more new player friendly, make the game less perk dependent, or make it easier for new players to get the perks they need. The basic perks in the game right now are not very good. There's a few that are decent, but the majority are just old and outdated, and they can't keep up with modern DBD standards. On console, you get the Doctor and you get the Hag for free. Not sure why this isn't the case on PC, but doing that would also help new players. Then they would have more perks to choose from as well without having to buy those characters. I think making the Shrine of Secrets 8 perks per week instead of 4 would also help. There's just some features that are very old and the game gets bigger and bigger, but not everything else gets bigger and bigger like the Shrine of Secrets. Let me know what you guys think though. What do you think Dead by Daylight can do about the future of the game? I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you in the next one.